the Department of Pacifica Efficiency. The word efficiency doesn't quite fit on the chainsaw, but that's Pacifica for you. So welcome again to the National Town Hall. My name is Sheila Hamanaka. I'm a mere listener member of WBAI in New York City. And Pacifica, as you know, has 5 stations. And folks can, if you're like really friendly, you can say what station you're from in the chat. The format today is going to be in 2 parts. The first part will be, as usual, a sort of panel discussion, one after the other, sequentially, people from different stations discussing the crisis that we're in, the crisis and opportunity that we're in. And then the second half will be a Q&A. And I've been told that people can write their questions in the chat. I hope somebody will keep track of those items in the chat, because you have to excuse me, folks. I'm legally blind, so I will not be able to read anything in the chat. Michael, are we going to try to start on time, or are we going to wait until 3:05? I mean,
yeah, we said 3:05 really for the actual start, just to give people a chance to get on. It's about it's like about 30 people on now, but there are 100 registrants, so.
Okay. Well, once again, for folks who are coming in, welcome to the Pacifica Fightback National Town Hall. My name is Sheila Hamanaka. I'm a listener member from WBAI in New York City. Our Zoom host today is Michael Novick, former interim general manager of KPFK, and Kirby Washington. They will be watching out for you potential Zoom bombers. Don't try anything, you'll be caught. And we have our magnificent MC host of the day is PK McCary, renowned from KPFT Houston. PK is a gifted facilitator and a conflict resolver that we certainly need inside Pacifica and in the world in general. And I think it's going to be a great town hall. So again, if you're so inclined, let us know in the chat who you are and what station you're from. So our schedule again is going to be like the first hour will be people talking, LSB members, local station board members, listeners, and programmers from different stations will be talking. And then the second hour will be Q&A. So PK McCary, please take it away.
Well, there are some things that I'd like to give away, but one of the things that I think today can really be about is understanding the rights of all of us and telling the truth about the issues that keeps taking us backwards and not at all being part of the mission of Pacifica. And I would just like to not warn, but advise you to listen and to talk succinctly, because you may know things that others don't know. But as our moderators are talking, take notes. And if you don't have a pad to take notes, you can put it in the chat so that we can look at it and make sure that no one's voice is censored or shut off. It's time that we become the people that we've been waiting for. Let's be those people today, and let's get a new trajectory of how we do business at Pacifica for the future. I'm a historian as well, and I think that it's time. for us to tell the truth and to mark this day as a new trajectory for making a better Pacifica. I hope we all agree. I've got, my folks from KPFT on the line, and why don't we just give another 5 minutes, 4 minutes actually, at 5:10, we'll get started.
Well, while we're waiting, let me just give you a rundown of who will be speaking. We have scheduled Banupti Kamanthau from the WBAI LSB, Michael Novick, renowned former interim general manager of KPFK, who has brought with him many experiences from both sides. He's going to tell us what really goes on at a station. After Michael, let me see my list here. We have Sally Gellert, who's a WBAI producer from EcoLogic, a great show. That's eco as in ecology, okay? Then Sally will be followed by Robert Gordon, another wonderful local station board member from WPFW in Washington, D.C. And after that, well, PK will be addressing us and with some really great ideas for how we can take bylaws into our own hands. And then Mimi Rosenberg, super multitasker from WBAI, produces 2 shows, Building Bridges, which also airs on WPFW. Her shows air there too, and Equal Rights and Justice. And then, well, I'm going to talk for like 2 minutes after Mimi, a hard act to follow. So, again, welcome. This is the Pacifica Fightback National Town Hall, talking about the palace coup, which here's an illustration I found of the new queen or would-be queen of Pacifica wielding, I was trying to animate this cartoon a bit, wielding a chainsaw from the Pacifica Department of Pacifica Efficiency, or DOPE. And of course, what are they cutting? People's programming. And we're here to protest that. So, PK, tell me, is it time yet?
60 seconds.
60
Everybody take some deep breaths.
Okay.
And we'll start with our first moderator.
Everybody inhale and exhale. Get ready. This is going to be a good town hall. And post your names and stations that you're from in the chat and any questions that you might have. And I promise somebody will read those questions. Not me, but somebody will read those questions and ask them of our wonderful panelists. So.
I'm pretty good at Q&A, so we want everybody to know that you will be heard and your voice counts. And so another 20 seconds, I think. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And our first moderator, and pronounce your name for me so that I will not mispronounce it ever again.
Banupti from WBAI, are you here?
Yes, Banupti's here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So please take it away.
Introduce yourself again, better than we can.
Sure, certainly. So my name is Banupti coming through, and by way of introduction, I am a Gen Xer, African person, and organizer in Westchester County, just north of New York City, out within the WBAI 99.5 FM broadcast range, and a proud BAI member and supporter for going on about 25 years. And I've been very honored to learn from many elders who have been both supporters and or talent on air, like Alambe Brath and others, Samori Marksman. Frankly, I've been more a student and an observer than an active participant or organizer. But here I am today, trying to follow in the obligations and the legacy of resistance. As I said, I'm a resident of Mount Vernon, New York, which is a community mostly African and Latino populated in southern Westchester County, which is relevant to what I'll say later. But my task for this particular remaining 9 minutes has been to bring current, or bring at least up to relevance, the historical developments of this country, and as it relates to Pacifica Network and our stations and our members and listeners. So I initially considered that, many of the developments that, especially in the more obvious political terrain of the United States, that manifest themselves in the media as political developments, specifically electoral developments, who's elected and what do they do as officials, are relatively obvious to many of us. It should go without saying, I think in our circles, that President Donald Trump, as the United States president, in his second term, is the boogeyman of the day, and he's an abhorrent, deplorable human being in many ways, and just as much so as an official in a colonial state, a fascist state, quite frankly. But to put a finer point on that, I think what's more relevant to us, and as it relates to BAI, is how we got here. We do have concerns at Pacifica in the Pacifica leadership realm specifically, which is why many of us are here to talk about and to, at some point, discuss solutions to that. But I think for truth, honesty, and real justice to apply in our sense, we really need to know how we got here in a way that we look at the developments that got us to this point, not just in Pacifica, but in the United States. The United States is a social, political, and economic construct. And as such, we know that it didn't get here January 20th, when Donald Trump was inaugurated, or in 2017 when he was inaugurated for the first time. I think it's more honest and respectful of our resistance movements, frankly, to talk about how we got here in this United States as a colonial fascist state. And when we consider that, we realize more honestly that Donald Trump is not the actual problem. He's a symptom of the problem. And that's been said at this point probably ad nauseum, but I think we should compare ourselves compare ourselves as leadership and or resistance members in the Pacifica Network relative to that same situation. The Pacifica leadership that many of us agree at this point are taking Pacifica to an unholy place, if you will, in the history of Pacifica, did not get here overnight. I would follow to make example of that in the way that one considers, I'm an old aviation nerd in civil and military circles, and I consider that an airplane is an apt metaphor for something that we should compare ourselves to in the United States. An airplane is piloted by a very small crew for a large number of people, and it's made up of components from various places that take a lot of time and planning to execute before it becomes something that lifts off and takes people somewhere. I think we should compare ourselves to the United States as something like an airplane. It takes an airplane many months, if not years, to actually design and then execute as something that's built. It takes many components from plastic and metallic to titanium to rubber, glass, parts that generally don't come from the places where airplanes are used most. You know, an aircraft in the 21st century today includes parts that come largely from special minerally ored places where titanium to make its engines are mined. Places like Africa, where you make up the aircraft's engines and the aircraft's electronics. But an aircraft generally is not something that reflects the wealth and power of Africa. It's something that exploits the wealth and power of Africa. Similarly, you look at the aircraft as it's built out and it's executed. It has to be tested. Its fastest, highest altitudes have to be tested. It has to basically be taken to capabilities and points of failure, so that where it's going to be able to go. And I think at some point when it's sold, people can safely assume that they're in something that's well tested, right? That if an airplane falls out the sky, it's usually something momentary and unforeseen that usually precedes that failure, right? That what we call a catastrophic failure that usually results in many deaths. The United States is the same way. The United States was planned and executed many, many generations ago, hundreds of years ago at this point, and executed with the exploitation of people indigenous to this land, enslaved from other lands, and built to create something that would bring people to this point of exploitation, where now, all these years later, we've looked at political parties, both extinct and current, including the Republican and Democratic Party, as bodies that brought the United States to where it is. It took many years to create the United States in this thing that is now what we create. We can look at Donald Trump as the pilot of this aircraft, but you know what? This aircraft was not built by Donald Trump. It was not even test flown by Donald Trump. It was test flown and created by people who created this thing many years before this point. We have to look at that and how it got here. We have to consider that many, including the last president before Donald Trump, including many Democratic Party presidents and Republicans, both parties, and of course at federal, state, and local levels, both parties have exploited people and have caused deaths and a lot of misery to get to this point. The only reason we know that this country is, like any aircraft, proceeding to fly straight and narrow is because it's been tested. Resistance movements have pushed the United States to the point of failure, so that they don't really fly as fast and high anymore as the United States used to under more severe fascism, right? At this point, we're flying in a particular way, metaphorically speaking, that we think that we somehow are experiencing something new. But many of us who've been in resistance and oppression know that this is not something new. We know that this is metaphorically, this is a vehicle that has been here before. We've all been here before. But we're unfortunately at a place where the suffering is more widespread, and we can't go back to a place where we now rebuild the plane as we want to do. Many people want to go back to a place also at the Pacifica network level, where we return Pacifica to this kind of liberal, seemingly less harmful place where we have the former kind of liberal, Democratic Party friendly terrain that we existed. But even Pacifica existed in a place where we did not listen to the so-called radicals. We didn't listen to the most oppressed people. We probably wouldn't be here if the so-called radicals got more airtime, not just on the broadcast space, but in the public fora where we discussed our issues. A lot of the liberal mindsets that created Pacifica leadership have been here for many years, and we don't want to get to the place. If we can save Pacifica, and if we can save our stations, we have to get to the place where we're not centering these liberal mindsets and these kind of go along to get along incremental opinions that somehow put Pacifica in the place where we're just NPR and liberal. We have to mind ourselves as a resistance movement, and we have to respect the so-called radicals, not as extremes, but as necessary
30
parts
seconds.
of a necessary future. And if we want to be free, we have to consider that the radical times we're in require radical responses. So in that respect, I want to see WBAI and all of our stations pay more attention to the radical situations that exist around us geographically in our respective communities, but also internally in WBAI specifically, because that's where I do some of my work as an LSB member. I think we have to consider that Pacifica needs to aspire to radicalism, regardless of what that makes people feel like at this point. We have to really respect that we don't get to radical places using moderate means. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. So we can deal with that more specifically, because I have other things to say in terms of how the Black bourgeoisie played in this role. But that's what I'm going to say for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. And you're going to be around for the Q&A, so we'll explore this a little bit more. But I was really taken with what you said. Next, we have Michael Novak, and he will take the second round of moderation.
Thank you. So I thank everybody for coming on. I think you share our sense of urgency, why we have this town hall in relation to some of what Venuti just laid out is the political context, not only in the world at large and in this country, but within Pacific itself. There's basically attacks on democratic rights, and that's been exemplified by the bylaws that were recently imposed. They claim through a settlement of a court litigation that's been going on for several years. So I want to run down quickly for people what's in those bylaws and what the consequences are, which is why we're having this town hall. So really, I would say one of the most critical aspects of these new bylaws, which we consider an illegal substitution. They were not adopted by any of the methods within the bylaws for changing the bylaws. They were adopted in secrecy. But the main aim of it and of the same thing that was in the New Day proposal and the predecessor Pacifica restructuring project bylaws proposal, both of which were rejected and defeated by the members in foundation-wide votes, is to centralize power and authority in the national board and the manager they hire, the executive director, and to disempower the local station boards and to eliminate local oversight of the management and the budget of the finances. And they do this by eliminating the provisions for the elected local delegates to choose the PFB directors. They also have removed the local station board directors, treasurers as a position. And since there are still treasurers, they're allowing them to sit on the National Finance Committee for kind of observation purposes, but they no longer have a vote on the National Finance Committee considering the budgets of the stations and the foundation. They have ended the election of delegates from each station to the various committees of the Pacifica National Board. And specifically, they have already ended all involvement of local station boards in the selection process for managers and in the evaluation of the station managers and the program directors. And these were some of the key elements of the bylaws that they have removed and replaced. So I want to clarify also for people really what's going on with these bylaws. There's a kind of bait and switch they put out a little spreadsheet with a comparison, but they left out some of the most important things. For example, the current bylaws provide for the recall or removal of a local station board member, also known as a delegate. And if that delegate is serving as the director of the Pacifica Foundation on the national board, they would be removed from that director position as well as a consequence of a vote by the members at their station. This has been removed. In the original bylaws, it says, upon the majority vote of the class of members associated with a radio station who originally elected the delegate, voting by written ballot in an election to remove said delegates. The election is held if the secretary has received a petition signed by at least 2% of the appropriate class of members affiliated with that radio station. And if that delegate is removed as a delegate, they're also removed, as I said, from the national board. The illegal substitute bylaws, remove this provision for removal of LSB members by the general membership electorate, and they provide no comparable method for removal of the members of the Pacifica National Board by the members. they basically disguise various realities of the illegal substitute bylaws. For example, the table of contents in what they put out this shows the members as A, listeners, and B, staff. But the actual body of the document is different. It says A, paid staff, A, listeners, and B, paid staff members, and then C, volunteer staff members. This is because originally they planned to actually separate the two parts of the staff into separate voting constituencies. They dropped that because they realized it was one of the most vulnerable parts, but they still have this aspect of dividing the staff in two in the actual language, even though the table of contents tries to disguise that. Similarly, in the new illegal bylaws, they state all members shall have all rights granted to them by law or by these bylaws, including without limit the right to vote on the terms and in the manner set forth in these bylaws on the election and removal of directors. But this is another deception because there is no provision for removal of directors by vote of the members. Not for the so-called board officers, not for the station representative directors, not for the staff representative directors. None of them have a provision that the people who elected people can remove them. Similarly, Article 15 on voting methods in the new bylaws defines two methods of voting as the current one does: single transferable vote and instant runoff vote. That's STV and IRV. But the reality of the voting methods used in the illegal substitute bylaws repeatedly diverge from those methods. Those methods were designed in the original bylaws to assure that a single majority cannot control all the seats or offices and that minorities get some amount of representation. Instead, the illegal substitute bylaws repeatedly provide for methods where the same majority controls all the seats or all the offices. In electing the directors as single seat named national officers, a national chair, a national vice chair, a national treasurer, etc., they assure that the same faction and ticket will control all those seats. In providing only a single station representative from each station, they assure that only the majority faction from each station will take the seat from that station. The local station board officers are elected in the same manner. Each election is for a single officer position, guaranteeing that the same majority can fill all the seats. And once they're on the board, they elect on the PNB, they get to elect two at-large members, and in that vote, each member gets two votes. So the same majority can name both at-large directors. This consistent pattern makes it clear that the language retaining SDV and IRV is a sham. It's just a propagandistic substitute to disguise the winner-take-all, first-past-the-post reality, which, as in governmental elections, essentially disenfranchises and discounts minorities. The new illegal substitute bylaws don't provide any mechanism for keeping money out of Pacifica politics. On the contrary, through all those provisions that eliminate minority voices and opinions, they ensure that the faction with the deepest pockets will dominate every aspect of governance with no recourse of voice for all the other elements of membership. So what's the reasoning for this? Again, they express in several places they want to remove the power of the local boards to have any oversight over finances, over management. It's expressed in several places. They have adopted a measure that says any and all actions, resolutions, and policies taken or adopted by the LSB, local station board, may be overridden by a majority vote of the directors if said action, resolution, or policy is found by the board of directors to be adverse to the mission or purposes of the foundation, to exceed the power or authority granted to said LSB, or inconsistent with these bylaws. It's also spelled out most clearly in the transition section, and that transition has already begun, according to them, despite the continuing court proceedings to which they came up with their settlement. Quote, during the transition period and under the provisions of the revised bylaws and thereafter, the powers and duties of local station boards change to a focus on fundraising, membership drives, community outreach, and assessing the needs of the station in regard to their communities. Quote, during the transition period and under the provisions of the revised bylaws and thereafter, LSBs no longer elect directors to the national board, no longer recommend budgets to the national board, no longer approve bylaws or articles of incorporation amendments, will no longer be elected as delegates to national committees, nor have direct involvement in personnel matters. These changes, disempowering the members and the delegates we elect and eliminating local oversight and evaluation of managers and station finances, make it clear why the New Day majority on the PNB is seeking to impose these illegal substitute bylaws in the manner they are, which is to say without any public discussion or any member vote. They know the bylaws do not pass the smell test. And in the light of day, with a fully informed electorate voting on the changes, they would be defeated by the members again. And I put in the chat an article I wrote, which is in Changelings, basically what's the background and reasoning behind this. And it's because Pacifica has always been contested terrain. The democratization of the bylaws that took place and of the organization that took place at the beginning of this century came after years of struggle. And there's continued to be struggle about what voices are allowed on the air. When I was general manager, we added many additional Black radical voices, indigenous voices, a labor show. Almost all of those, after they removed me, were cut or reduced or eliminated completely. And that's really what's behind this, is to sterilize what goes over the airwaves and to restrict it. There was an attempt, basically, going back for the last century.
Time.
Okay, so we did win that struggle to democratize the bylaws, and we can't afford to lose it, because the democratic bylaws is what has kept Pacific in existence. Air America's gone, MSNBC, got rid of all the anti-war voices. NPR silenced Mumia Abu-Jamal. Pacifica is here to continue the fight because of the democratization. If we lose that, we'll lose everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Right on the dime. Sally, are you here?
I am here, yes.
How are you doing?
Right. I am actually sitting in for Serene Roberts, so I hope what I'm going to say is what you guys need from me. My understanding is that she was going to present a timeline of the recent months of how we got to this point with the bylaws. This lawsuit started back in 2021, which in fact was a year and a half or 2 years after the then national board went into Pacifica, shut it down, and took it off the air. So somehow, when this referendum came up and the WBI staff vote was like everybody but one person opposed to the change of bylaws, they think there was manipulation. I kind of suspect that people were reacting to what had happened not long before, and in fact, there are records from the election supervisor and the program director at the time pointing out that elections were handled just as they were on every other election, and there was no question about that until just recently. Now, last March, on the 6th, I am a member of the WBAI, LSB, and the Pacifica National Board. I am new to that position. On March the 6th, the Pacifica National Board meeting, the New Day majority came in with a list of people they wanted to put on the author. Okay, back a bit. The court case, the original judge said the election failed, nothing to try here. There were a couple of other questions about a couple of other things, but that was settled at that point. Coming forward a couple of years later, there's a countersuit. There's all kinds of countersuits back and forth. New Day majority came in and said, "Hey, we would like to authorize mediation because we're afraid that we're going to all have to go back and dig out records from 5 years ago, and nobody's got those, and that'll be really expensive, and we really can't do that. So we want to mediate this and settle it, and we want to appoint the executive director, the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the secretary to go and do that for us." And the majority of the board, being New Day people, agreed, and the minority of us were overridden. And the same group the following week in a special meeting accepted that result, and our lawyer was excluded from that meeting. So those of us who wanted a legal opinion did not have one. I can't remember whether they brought in a new lawyer for that meeting or whether he came in later. But it was somebody that we knew nothing about. It's like, oh, we've got this new lawyer here. March 20th, the mediation session was held. It was basically New Day versus New Day, and New Day agreed to itself. Did they give a reason? Yeah, they can't trust the lawyer because the lawyer didn't like the settlement, was trying to the original lawyer, Arthur Schwartz, said, he originally thought that there were some issues that didn't result in terms of the major overturn of the bylaws that could be negotiated. Whether he was naive, whether he was overly optimistic, I don't know, but basically they didn't want him in the meeting. They didn't want him. They took him off this case. He remains general counsel, but not for something that, he may have a difference of opinion on. The ratification, we asked on, yes, he is still general counsel. That's Rachel's. We had asked before, when they said we've got this agreement that we want to accept, we said, okay, let's have a special meeting of the board so that we can know what's in this mediation agreement before we sign it. And the entire majority faction it's called for excused absences, so we did not have a quorum, so we could not have that meeting to find out what was going on. So at the next regularly scheduled meeting on the 20th, they pushed through this agreement, and there was a court date for April 8th at which the settlement to report to the court on the mediation process and where we were and so forth. We showed up to that meeting. There had been some attempts by Pacifica Fightback and possibly another group to put in a notice to the court that all was not peaches and roses here. There were problems with this settlement. They were all too late, didn't get accepted, but the court did not hold the hearing that day. The clerk told us that come back on July 3rd, make sure you notify everybody of your any objections ahead of time, and then if do it right this time, you've got 2 months basically. Well, 2 days later, New Day sent the court the settlement saying, "Set a deal, we're settled, sign off on it." The courts took the July 3rd date off the calendar. Another intervention was made last week, and the July 3rd date is back on the court calendar. Will New Day object and get it taken off again? That's a possibility. Will we actually maybe be able to make a good case on July 3rd and get this whole thing reversed? I hope so. We certainly need to keep the pressure on, get the funding for whatever legal people we need, and those of you who are out there in California, show up in person. I'll show up on Zoom. I think that's all I have to say, Jack.
Thank you. I think that you're talking about good faith efforts not being in good faith. Do I have that wrong?
I'm sorry,
I just said their requests have never been in good faith.
Right.
Okay, I was just asking. That's what I was understanding. But we'll get to this in the Q&A. Thank you so much, Sally. Appreciate it. Robert Garten.
Get
Get the legal picture.
How you doing?
Do you know I'm fine?
Good.
Okay, a little laughter.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Well, I brought John Coltrane with me to get some spiritual guidance up in here. So because after all, I'm from WPFW and we are Jazz and Justice. I'm the vice chair of WPFW's LSB, and I've been a board member for about a year and a half, but a long-time listener. And my roots actually go back to WBAI when I grew up in New York. When I was a teenager, my funk band actually performed live on WBAI. That was a very long time ago, but so it has a special, Pacifica has a special place in my heart. I've been a lawyer for over 40 years and was a federal judge for 14 years. And now I'm a law professor at University of Maryland. Carey Law, which is the reason I ended up down in Maryland. So it's kind of a full circle thing. But I want to emphasize I'm not a California lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice, but I have paid close attention to the court file. And I wanted to be able to give you all something of an accurate overview of where the case stands based upon a review of the court record and a lot of the documents that have been filed. So let me give you the right now status of the litigation. And this kind of overlaps with what our last presenter, Sally, just said, but to give a little bit more detail. First and foremost, just this past Wednesday, a motion to intervene was filed by individuals affiliated with various LSBs. I think it'd be safe to say that Alex Steinberg is the lead intervener with respect to that, but all sort of standing in equal status. And what the motion to intervene seeks is permission for those individuals to be named as parties in the pending litigation in the Los Angeles Superior Court and to file an objection to the settlement. And the proposed objection is attached to the motion to intervene. And if the objection is successful, its goal is to negate the settlement in its entirety and cause a reversion to the existing bylaws. So the way I would describe it is to the extent that the order signed by the judge back in April indicates that the bylaws, the proposed bylaws are final, the pending objection suspends the finality of that until the judge has a chance to take a good look at it and rule on it. I've got a copy of the motion. If you want me to, I can upload that to the chat. It's lengthy, so I don't know if you're going to be able to download it, but I will try and do that when I finish speaking. And as was indicated by Sally, there is a hearing pending on July 3rd to hear the motion to intervene and perhaps also the objection at the same time. So the intervener's first contention in the objection is that the court has already, in essence, ruled that a bylaws amendment must comply with the amendment process included in Article 17 of what I'll refer to as the existing bylaws. And because the 2021 referendum to change the bylaws did not satisfy the voting requirements of Article 17, the court ruled back then via summary judgment, as we call it, which means judgment without any sort of a factual hearing, that the bylaws proposed by New Day were defeated in the referendum. The would-be interveners now argue that decision is what we call the law of the case. And there are different ways to describe that using Latin, as lawyers are wont to do. I'll just say at this point, law of the case. In other words, that's the decision in the case. It hasn't changed and it's still binding, and it cannot be altered by what's being referred to as a settlement by the defendant, New Day, and the present version of Pacifica, still the plaintiff. The second contention is that the Pacifica board was convinced by what is alleged to be intentionally incorrect and inaccurate information, that being the allegation that the staff vote at WBAI in the 2021 referendum was tainted by fraud, and that therefore to vote in favor of the settlement of the case and surrendering Pacifica's prior summary judgment victory by replacing the existing bylaws with the proposed bylaws. So that's what is alleged in the motion as the reasoning behind the settlement, which essentially gives up the prior victory in full that was approved by summary judgment. So the argument goes that the alleged illegitimacy of the foundation of the present Pacifica board vote to settle the case by imposing the new bylaws should be recognized and rejected by the court, and the settlement thrown out on that basis too. So essentially alleging collusion, right? So one second. All right, so that's what's being alleged now. Let me give you a brief history of the litigation so you can put it all in context. A referendum was held in 2021 to determine whether a new set of bylaws would be adopted. They were proffered by the entity known as New Day. After the vote, New Day claimed the bylaws had passed and began taking action as if that was the case. Those bylaws are virtually identical to the bylaws sought to be adopted by the settlement. And I would just describe the differences being the existing bylaws are democracy from the bottom up. The proposed bylaws are ruled by the few from the top down. The litigation was filed by Pacifica via the PFB that existed at that time to obtain a declaration that the proposed bylaws had lost in the referendum, and that the follow-up takeover behavior of New Day was unauthorized and illegal. So there were several other counts in the complaint in addition to the count that sought the declaration that the referendum had been won by the plaintiff Pacifica. The most important issue was that who won the referendum, and that is the issue that the judge ruled upon in April 2023. The judge ruled that the referendum had failed and the proposed New Day bylaws were defeated. There's no question about that. It's in black and white in the court record. The reason that did not resolve and in the case, though, is because the other counts and claims in the complaint were still pending. Eventually, that judge retired, and it appears that a mediation session was scheduled at some point to deal with a dispute over whether certain information could or should be exchanged. That's my understanding of it based upon my review of the file. With a new judge presiding over the case and changed circumstances at the PFB regarding the majority of its leadership, the settlement and imposition of the proposed bylaws was presented. The interveners attempted to object, but as just recited, the attempt was simply effective. Yet, even the order prepared by Pacifica and New Day settling the case and imposing the proposed bylaws was entered, a hearing was also scheduled for the July 3rd date to hear objections. But as we know, over a week ago, or maybe you don't know, but over a week ago, New Day and Pacifica recently consented to the dismissal of the case. That's how that happened. But importantly, that was requested without prejudice and for the court to still exercise jurisdiction over the case. Those factors are important. They're not, determinative, but they are important because they should make it easier for the case to proceed and for the judge to hear the objection, hear the motion to intervene. Just this past Wednesday, the interveners or the would-be interveners filed the motion and objection I described at the beginning, making
9 minutes.
the arguments that were described, and also requested that the July 3rd hearing date be reinstated. So that's where things stand now. There is going to be a hearing on July 3rd. Those arguments are going to be raised. Of course, those on the other side are going to have the opportunity to respond and contest. But I've read the document. The arguments are strong. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's in the judge's lap. No one else but the judge is going to be making the final decision on that. And that's important to remember, whatever else you may hear outside of the court proceeding. So I think that's all I have. So thanks for the time to share that. And I'll go ahead and upload or try and upload the motion to the chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Robert. And
Sure.
we can get to maybe some of the questions that are being asked from all of your conversations. I'm going to weigh in here, and just for transparency's sake, I'm an LSB member now. That wasn't purposeful. I just wanted to get more people of color running for the LSB, and I was supporting other people. Well, lo and behold, I am now on the LSB. And that really interferes with what I've been doing since 2019, and that's the Community Advisory Board. And working with Fightback over these last 2 or 3 years, we've been doing some incredible town hall meetings. But when you have people that don't play fair and they don't play by the rules, they are in no way shamed or ashamed. They're going to do what they think they are entitled to. And it's a numbers game, because they don't get people to become members. They get people to become New Day. And they end up with the numbers of people who think that the rest of us are crazy. Sounds kind of like the administration in the White House. I can know that there are really good people for the Community Advisory Board, and I hope that that's something that we can get started at least this month. The other thing is that I'm on the governance committee, and one of the things that happens when New Day wants their way is that the people who are on the first governance call and could be claimed to be members, they dismissed it. And they said they've got to start all over again. Rules for them, rules for me, and it's always different. And so I'm not a lawyer, but I was a paralegal for a long time, which means that I do a lot of research. I'm real good with research. And I started really looking into a bylaws conference or convention. Now, there's a slight difference between what a conference would be and what a convention would be. A conference would be more formal, focused, and procedural. But a convention is broader. It's more historic and movement oriented, which is, as an activist, where I would like to go. But at the same time, one is more expensive than the other, but still, I think that it's something worth fighting for. And so in our governance meeting, what I said was, I'm not making a motion. I want to have a conversation about the bylaws convention or conference. And you would have thought, I mean, when I first started talking, everybody was okay, but other people got on the phone calls, and there were those who said, you know, F you, blah, 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 wouldn't let us talk. It was just ridiculous. And I'm thinking, you know, what is this? The funny farm? And then they dropped off the call. And when we tried to have another meeting for governance, they took that down because we didn't have quorum. So we're in an uphill battle. But I do have kind of a recommendation, is if we can put together, and we've already started it, because I looked at what a conference could look like, and we talked about it at the last Fightback meeting. So it means that we're going to have to, you know, bite the bullet. And my thing is that we need a proposal that we put in a way that has legal consequences. And those legal consequences is about fairness and justice. And I don't think we talk about that enough. It's one of the things that made the Community Advisory Board so powerful, because people came to it and people talked about it and they gave their opinion and they worked together, even though maybe on the LSB they voted with the New Day people. When they came to cabs, we really had great conversations. However, just like when we had our first town hall meeting as a cab after 8 months of working on it, the place where we were supposed to be, somebody called, told them they were me, and they canceled the meeting. 48 hours before we were supposed to have a meeting. Thankfully, I'm a civil rights baby, and I know a lot of historical places, and that's where we had it, was at the historical St. John's Baptist Church on Emancipation Avenue. And while we didn't have the 70 plus people who came, we had almost 50. So if we're going to do this, we have to be consistent. We've got to play to people's strengths. And, you know, I say that looking at Michael and Kirby. Well, I don't see Kirby, but I know he's there in the background. But all of the individuals, Sheila, Serene, I mean, we have the tools and the blueprint to do this. I think that it is best that we keep some of it close to our vest, but that we take the next 30 days and really put together something that we can show has merit versus numbers or bad faith responses. This is the time to know that, you know, the proposed bylaws that New Day is trying to push down our throats is not new. And it continues to be that they want to take over for what? If you like that kind of radio where you do that, go to NPR, leave Pacifica alone. And the implications are that that is the reason that we have to do this, because Pacifica Fightback has been doing a bang up job, but people get discouraged and get disappointed. And when they get discouraged and disappointed, we lose the number. So the other side of this is, if we were going to have a convention or a conference, say in 2026, that means that we need members and people who are listeners be a part of that. So it's more than one thing that we are trying to accomplish. The situation is going to always be contentious until the people are empowered. And I'm taking a line from a sitcom, Sugar Bakers. I'll be glad when people with power get good sense, and people with good sense get some power. And I think we can do it together. And I hope that we don't drop the ball here, because this is not just important. And I'm a historian. This is not
1 minute left.
Okay, this is not just important to put us on good footing and start learning how to build capacity for bringing people to Pacifica who are programmers, who become good programmers, future programmers, who become those funders who can really put us on the right path, and that we can learn how to be sustainable. And the sooner that we figure this out about what a bylaws convention or conference consists of, and getting members, we stand to lose Pacifica. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, because I'm actually hopeful, which is why I made the suggestion that we start looking at getting that. Thanks, Nancy. I did that right on time. The next is my sister, my co-conspirator, my sister from another mother. Mimi, you want to take it from there?
Thank you. What a splendid introduction. And I don't know if it means anything, but it's just started a torrential downpour here. I hope that's a good rather than a bad omen. Greetings, 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 comrades. I'm Mimi Rosenberg, and this is a call to action. Media for liberation. We will not be gagged. We are a subcommittee of Pacifica Fightback, organizing a national forum in a matter of weeks to build a coalition against the escalating suppression of political expression and media freedom. From book bans and curriculum rollbacks to the ideological targeting and attempted deportation of pro-Palestinian campus activists, and from the assassination of journalists like Shireen Abu Akleh, a renowned Palestinian American reporter, to the prosecution of whistleblowers under laws like the Espionage Act, aka Julian Assange, to the prosecution of the Uhuru 3 as foreign agents. These attacks are designed to silence dissent and coercion for the media, political activists, to silence us and drive us into self-censorship. Now, increasingly, these efforts are accompanied by false accusations of anti-Semitism or claims of reverse discrimination, tactics used to discredit movements for justice and obscure the real issues at stake. And at their core, these attacks are about controlling public information and denying people the knowledge and theory needed to build a practice for transformative change. But this forum is about more than documenting repression. It's about organizing for resistance and transformation. The question isn't just what's being done to the press, but why our media institutions have been so vulnerable in the first place. Censorship has been a tool always of authoritarian control used by the plutocracy to suppress transformative ideas and prevent the empowerment of communities targeted by systemic injustice. Part of this vulnerability lies in the limitations of media institutions that claim independence but struggle to live up to their mission. Pacifica, for example, has faced ongoing challenges in diversifying its leadership and developing sustainable, community-rooted funding models. Without broader inclusion and innovation, financial, technological, and cultural, even mission-driven media can falter under pressure. Now, while Pacifica has long served as a vital space for independent, justice-oriented media, its management, production, content, and governance still do not fully reflect the diversity and inclusion of the most liberatory sectors of society, particularly those communities historically at the forefront of struggles for justice. This disconnect weakens its ability to draw strength from the very movements it seeks to uplift. To withstand attacks on its license, Pacifica, or the potential prosecution of its staff, Pacifica must deepen its commitment to democratic participation and ensure its leadership and programming are shaped by those most impacted by systemic oppression. To truly resist the silencing of dissent, we must build media that is not only accountable to the people, but also non-hierarchical, democratically governed, and led by those who have experienced the very bases and discrimination institutionalized in this society. Our media institutions must be genuinely diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Now, we reject the idea that media should be neutral. Media is a political tool, and it must be used to educate and to agitate and organize. If it's not helping people understand and challenge the forces shaping their lives, it's not serving the public, it's serving power. Pacifica must assume a leadership role, not as a passive observer or stationary critic, but as an active political force on the media landscape. It must open its doors wider to communities historically excluded or only nominally included. This is the political take on what we're discussing with the bylaws and the efforts to further exclude. We must include as administrators, producers, and decision makers those who have been historically excluded. Its governance must reflect the people it serves, and its content must be shaped by and for those made into political pariahs. Two goals are what we're seeking to implement in the forum that will be held shortly, which we want you to help us build. We want to build a rapid response network to mobilize against attacks on the press and political speech, whether in legislation, policing, in the prison system, in the school system. We want to develop a long-term action agenda to create democratic, inclusive media led by working class communities, people of color, migrants, queer and trans folks, and others historically excluded from shaping the narrative. We also confront xenophobia, red baiting, and the weaponization of anti-Semitism to silence dissent. Censorship takes many forms. Blackouts, bans, deportations, disinformation, but all serve the same purpose: to limit resistance and preserve the status quo. Our media is not a passive academic exercise. It is a tool for transformation, because a better world is possible and media is fundamental to building it. We envision a beloved egalitarian community, and Pacifica must be part of making that vision real. So the forum I'm asking you to become participants in as part of the Pacifica Fightback agenda. This forum is just the beginning. It's not replicating old hierarchies. We're building something new. So if you believe media can be a tool for liberation, oh, do join us. Help shape the agenda. Let's build something bold, inclusive, and unapologetically political together. So we're going to see you at our next organizing meeting on July 11th, 2025. And to get the invite, I want you to take this down. All you have to do is email show@outfm.org, show, SHOW, @outfm.org. And I will say forward ever, backward never, and for a free Palestine from the river to the sea, always, always. But all of this, as I finish this up, is about working in the political sphere, boots on the ground, because no matter what happens with the litigation, Pacifica has
1 minute.
failed its constituents. It has not democratized. It has not been politically inclusive of those who need it most and help build it from the ground up. And that is our function. So while we seek to preserve it against the repression coming, no doubt, its way, and which will tackle, I believe, our license and possible prosecutions of individual producers and the like, we want to fortify it with a whole different construct. We want it to realize the promise that it is not done as a democratic political institution to transform this society. And I thank all of you who have been participants today.
Time.
You are what it's about. So please become participants with us and support your station, whose station, our station, and let's make it so. Thank
Will you
you.
be sending out
Thank
emails?
you.
Will you be sending out email notifications about that regularly and putting it on the website and everything like that? Or
Well, we
Facebook site?
absolutely would. And one last time, I'll put it in the chat. Just write to show, SHOW, at outfm.org. And please join with us. And let's make it so politically for a brave new Pacifica to confront the ugly old world that
Or could
has
you
been brought
send
to
that
us. And
information in an email? Because I don't know how to do it on this chat format. Just send about show information.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Margot, this is
Thank you.
Bella.
You
I
will.
will send it to you.
Wait for the
You'll send it.
Q&A,
Thank you,
please.
Bella. Thank you,
the
Bella. Okay.
answer is yes.
Please wait for the Q&A.
answer is yes, Margot.
We've come.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, we've come full circle, and we're back to Sheila, who welcomed us in with me, Michael. Sheila,
Yeah, thanks.
last but not least.
Thanks. My name is Sheila Hamanaka. I'm a listener member from WBAI, and I'm going to try to keep this really short. I've been trained at LSB meetings. When there's a public comment, you have 2 minutes. And I must say, last time I held up a sign at, I think it was a KPFK meeting or KPFA, my video was turned off by the New Day host controller. I was muted and my video was removed. So much for free speech in Pacifica. I wanted to raise an interesting thing that happened recently at KPFA. I don't know if there are KPFA listeners here. I think there may be some New Day people in our audience, but an odd ad turned up, a cart on KPFA, and it was in defense of the Voice of America, comparing, because Trump cut the funding, right, for Voice of America, comparing Voice of America to Pacifica. Now, wow, if anybody knows anything about the Voice of America, and everybody should, we know that Voice of America, like Radio Marti, these are anti-communist networks putting out the voice of the US government, of the capitalists, of the CIA, and promoting counter-revolution all around the world. And this ad was comparing Pacifica to the Voice of America. Well, fortunately, members of Rescue Pacifica took it upon themselves to protest this horrific, really reactionary cart to promote KPFA on the airwaves. I believe they forced the station to take it down. But the struggle that's going on in Pacifica now has deep roots. And if you think about KPFA and California, the ocean, the surf, the white liberal pacifists, right, starting this wonderful new radio station network, right? Well, something happened. Colonial wars, anti-colonial wars began to happen around the world, right? And what happened at WBAI was that those voices coming from the colonies began to demand to get on the air. So you had this this kind of face-off between white liberal pacifists meeting Black radical, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, most notably in the form of Samori Marksman, an internationalist, well-known internationalist leader who was general manager at WBAI after huge struggles, prompted by the movement inside New York City and other Black communities for Black community control. We managed to get, not me, but they managed to get Black management at WBAI, radical voices, Black radical voices on the radio. Imagine that. So that's strong. And there was a fight to depose that leadership at WBAI. And it was largely successful. I'm not going to say who led that fight against, but the Black leadership at WBAI. But there's been a traditional struggle within Pacifica over the issue of racism. Now, there's a lot of talk nowadays because people are very upset, justifiably, about the coming of Trump and his recent activities. And you hear the word fascism. Well, what is fascism? Fascism today in the United States is when the oppression, historical oppression that happened in this country to enslave people from Africa, to the indigenous populations whose land and lives were stolen, to people in the colonies, all that horrific torture and war and killing. It's when all that begins to hit white people in the metropole. That's what fascism is. And that's what's upsetting a lot of people today, because it's something new. It's like invisible thanks to the media when it happens to people in the colonies or to poor people or people of color, indigenous people here in states and internal colonies, right? That's invisibilized. So that's the struggle within Pacifica, because just like the land, there's air. Who owns the air? We have to struggle over ownership of the air as well as ownership over the land. And that's what's going on within Pacifica to some people, to me, and to other people who are trained or dedicated to anti-racism, anti-colonialism. So I would just like to, frame this struggle in terms of anti-racism. And by the way, I know that people in New Day will get their hackles will rise because they'll say, I'm not a racist. I have many Black friends. I have many Asian friends. I've never used the N-word, a J-word, etc. But that's not what we're talking about. As Mimi explained, we're talking about institutionalized racism. So that's what we have to structure into the bylaws that could work for the people, is to guarantee some power for the people, if such a thing is possible. So, okay, that's it. And turn it back to PK. PK is perhaps taking a coffee break. I think it's time we're going to start.
Yeah, I'm back. It wasn't a coffee break, but it was a break.
Okay. Everybody have some tea. Take a break. Have a little tea. We're going to have a Q&A now. Go ahead, PK.
One of the things that I would like to see us all do is to become the safe space for these conversations. And, maybe with your friends or some people that you see on the line that you haven't talked to in a while because you all are on opposite sides or whatever, but to be intentional in doing so. Because I remember there were people on some fightback calls early on when I got here and found out about fightback. And I realized that I was being gaslighted, but it didn't seem like anybody else did. And so I put in the chat, I'm done. And it was Sheila who said out loud, don't leave, don't leave. And we, you know, it makes a difference when people think that they aren't being heard, why bother? And when they are heard, being willing to take the rough and tumble part of it all. So I'm hoping that your questions and support, I don't see a lot of questions. I saw one by V about what's happening in stations with the Palestinians. So I think that V, if you would like to respond to that.
Sure. I'm gonna be real quick because I actually am interested in getting to the next parts, but actually I wanted to alert people to Sandy. I don't even really want to repeat it, but I guess I will if I have to. Sandy said some really racist shit about Palestinians. Sandy, the IGM of KPFT, and it was brought up during the LSB, and they basically shut us down, as you all know they do. I won't even go into details about that, but I just want people to know that that's happening, and I don't feel like, at least at our station, there's not, I mean, we're like silent on it. We're silent on the issue. Not even silent, but like our general manager apparently is a fucking Zionist. So I just wanted to let people know, in case you didn't know that about KPFT. Now you know. Thank you.
I would like to see if any of our moderators would have a response to that. Gordon or Mimi, Michael, Sheila. Don't all talk at once.
Yeah, my response was to begin with free Palestine. There's no more important, powerful, significant issue than genocide that is being enacted in our name. And I just want to ask V if there are any programmers that would do programming, and if that would be censored from within inside the station. Because if that is the case, then I think it is incumbent upon those of us who are on station boards, it is incumbent on Fightback, it is incumbent on other producers to write a letter of critique and condemnation to our sister, if you will, station, and support those producers and those listeners like V who are concerned. So I think we absolutely have to act on that. But I would like to know if there are any producers that have been willing to carry programming on Palestine, not to mention Haiti and a number of other issues.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I feel like Nancy would know, and I'll ask her. Maybe Mama PK knows. I would assume that if there is, they're on FM, not FM, that they're on one of the HD stations, not on the FM station.
All right. Then I would like to just, in any event, volunteer, and if I may, on behalf of Pacifica Fightback and for signatories from this group to sign up with a condemnation and a critique. First of all, it'd be nice to know exactly what was said to be able to quote that. But the fact that there is an exclusion of one of the most important and significant issues of genocide in our history is unconscionable and needs to be condemned. So I would begin to start to write something, and I would hope that there's some sort of consensus from the group here of condemnation and to sign on to this complaint. And I think it should be CC'd to the national board, and I think it should be CC'd to the executive director. And it's a way of beginning to put from the ground up pressure on the reactionary tendencies and racism and xenophobia that exist within Pacifica.
Yeah, I had my hand up just to also respond. I put in the
Fine.
chat that last year when I was the interim general manager at KPFK, we ran the entire 24 hours of Radio Free Palestine on Nakba Day. This year they didn't run anything. I think PFW did. I'm not sure about BAI, but KPFK did not.
BAI and
And when they-
WFW did.
When they dropped a lot of the programming that we had put on from different grassroots organizations here in LA, and substituted for it programming from KPFA, like Ian Masters, they also dropped, however, the one program we were carrying from KPFA, which was Flashpoints, which has always had a lot of strong pro-Palestinian and pro-Haitian programming. And, they eliminated that one along with the what we were carrying ourselves.
Thank you, Michael. Any of the other moderators? I see Bella first in the order. Bella, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, and greetings to everyone. I came in a little late. PK, I heard you earlier, and everything you said regarding the governance committee is a playbook of what has been done for KPFK, where the removal of the announcement posted at kpf.org for a governance committee to be held was also removed. But you have to understand that anything that has to do with governance and local committees have been completely canceled for over a year locally at KPFK. So it's not surprising what is happening at KPFT. I just wanted to warn that there should be no foul language in this town hall. And I know there's passions and there's tension. And I'm one of those passionate people, but I try not to curse. So I wanted to say that if this is a time when I can cover anything else, or do I have to have just questions? PK.
This is pretty much
I'm talking, I was gonna say, I'm not going to censor anybody, Bella. So why did you want to curse?
No, I'm not. I am not. We are.
I didn't quite understand the segue.
I am not.
But you can.
No,
yeah,
no.
Do you have more?
No, I did not. I did not ask anyone to censor anyone, especially Mimi Rosenberg spoke directly to that. Political expression is what we are being censored on all around us, including, of course, in Pacifica. Pacifica is being attacked internally and externally. Michael Novick put together a good article on change links here locally for the June issue. I would like to send that out to as many people as possible. Anyway, if that is time for me, then I cannot say anymore. Thanks.
You can come back.
Yes, thank you.
Get back in the queue.
Thank you, PK.
I see a telephone number 909. Question, comment?
Yes, if that's me, please. PK?
Yes.
909. Yes, I'll identify myself. This is Andrew Weiss, longtime listener member of KPFK Los Angeles, founder of Friends of Pacifica and Pacifica Listener Forum, along with Bella DeSoto and others. First of all, I have two things I'd like to say. First, I want to say it's unfortunate that I'm hearing that people would have to resort to trickery, underhandedness, etc., to try and get their way at Pacifica. If they really believe that their way of doing things is the right way, they should be honest and upfront and open about it, and not resort to underhandedness, trickery, et cetera, et cetera. That is not the way we do it at Pacifica. Second thing is, I'd like to say it seems that while all the issues going on in the world are quite important and need to be addressed, the issue at hand right now seems to be who is in charge and who is governing Pacifica. And so I would like to hear more about, and since we do have democratic elections still at Pacifica, thank you for that. It seems the solution would be to out-organize those we wish not to be governing Pacifica and put in place those we wish to be organized governing Pacifica. I'm not hearing enough about that, and I think, well, I may not agree or disagree. I may not agree with the way it's being governed right now. I have to hand it to those folks. They won the elections one way or another, and for people, if they don't want to see the current governance in power, well, out-organize them for the next elections. How about we start putting more efforts into that, and not so much time into outside efforts, such as what else is going on in the world and what else is going on in other groups. That's all I have to say. Thank you for this forum and for this time. Peace.
Thank you so much. Would any moderator like to respond to that? Hearing none. The next person is
Sheila. I'm sorry, PK. Sheila Hamanaka's got her hand up for a response.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Sheila.
All right. Oh, Sheila, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. Just very quickly, the person who spoke said that Pacifica, New Day Pacifica had won the referenda, or one of the referenda. That's wrong. They did not win. They lost both referenda.
No, he said referenda, elections. He said they won the elections, and they did
won some seats on the
referenda.
board.
Oh, okay. They won the elections. All right. And just to note, if you're talking about outside groups, if I don't know if he was referring to people of color around the world, colonized people, really, you cannot separate colonized people from people of color here. A lot of us come from those countries. So there really is no division. If there is a division, it's the government and the ruling class that would like us to think there is a division. So that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Moderator. Ruth Strauss.
Hi, thank you. I am probably, this will give you an idea of my age. I'm probably a 40-year listener, supporter, member of KPFK, which became totally dysfunctional in the recent past. And actually, it does date back to one manager that took Roy of Hollywood, which was a wonderful program from midnight to 6. Brought him down to 3 a.m., to 6, only took away 3 hours, put in some awful, programming before that. So that was the first, in my experience, of dysfunctional management, etc. Then fast forward, before the we had 2 years. A particular person who I guess I should say was the IGM wanted to have a local news program, wanted it so badly that the people who took over news, somebody made a comment in the chat about Trumpian. These people were the most Trumpian I've ever seen. They promoted RFK. They even promoted Trump. At one point, a programmer said, if you want somebody who's a businessman and knows economics, then your man is Trump. Of course, Jimmy Dore has swung to the right. There's also, they promoted Russell Brand. He's now not only right wing, he's a rapist or whatever. As far as the local news here, when a person in Orange County had stolen all the money that was awarded for seniors to get food, etc., what was on our news? Somebody talking about a mom who was protesting in that area about her kid not wanting to wear a mask and protesting that the kid shouldn't have to wear a mask. I mean, we had
Time.
Okay, fine. I'm just letting people know the dysfunction that's gone on at KPFK. Thank you. And it's gone on both sides.
Thank you. If I just want to break in and say that for the question and answers, we're going to try to keep that limited to 2 minutes. If just so people are aware of that, we're not, going to chop anybody's head off, but just so that we can be cognizant of the time.
Right.
Is that Kirby?
That is
Kirby.
correct.
This is Ian Johnson. This is
Yes.
Ian Johnson in LA. I have my hand up. I don't know where I'm at on the stack, but I would like to respond to 2 of the last speakers, please.
Okay, but PK's keeping the stack, but you are, I don't see your hand yet, but thank you for noting that, and we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Are you Rick?
No, I'm 6521.
6521.
Ian
I'm a
Johnston.
phone.
Ian, there's 4 folks in the stack ahead of you, and then you'll be up, okay?
Well,
I really would like to address what was just said because I find it specious in the extreme.
Well, it's okay. I know we all want to respond, but let's just let's keep the flow going. Let's keep it smooth. So we'll call on you. Thank you. Next up is Rachel Barr, PK, if you want to.
Yeah, it's Rachel.
Hi, good evening. So I've been involved with BAI for 46 years, and I was voted on the LSB the last time, and I left the LSB because of the racism from some LSB members, and I also learned that there were some Trump supporters on the PNB. So I have a question. I want to know what people think about the following idea. Would you say, I guess I'm asking this to the moderators because they're answering questions. Would you say that it would be okay for listeners, when producers are taking phone calls from listeners, for people to try to get on the line, to ask whoever the producer is at that time, that they heard somewhere that there was going to be a possible change in the bylaws that would make Pacifica run less democratically than it already does. Can we and say something like, I know this isn't the topic, but what that does, I think, is to let the other people who are listening know that something's cooking, if you will, on the stove. And so I want to know what people think about that, without, of course, getting producers into trouble, because it's bad enough that there's fascism, but if Pacifica is anything like it was back in the day, they wouldn't get into trouble for speaking out, if you will, about what was going on.
10 seconds.
So I want to get people's feel about that, because I've done that before, like years ago, and producers didn't get in trouble, and it was very effective. Thank you.
Okay. Comenta, our first moderator, you don't have to raise your hand if you had a comment about any of our Q&A. But go unmute yourself.
You talking about Benuti?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll lower my hand. I wanted to address the closing thoughts on the question before Rachel, because I think the caller made, I think, an appreciable sentiment that we should out-organize these internal weaknesses of Pacifica's leadership. And while I agree and would contend that there's an understandable spirit of that sentiment, I think to the letter of the language, I think we should understand that we're not dealing anymore with outside forces. We're very much dealing with internal weaknesses that can be out-organized. They have to be routed out from the very bottom. In fact, the organizational structure has to look much like the division that we're dealing with, and it's hurtful and it's painful. It doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. You know, a controlled burn of a forest means getting rid of wood that would otherwise be useful, right? But you got to break the distance between the line of fire and the potential kindling, right? For example, I'd like to see as a Mount Vernon resident, the so-called Chocolate City validity of Mount Vernon be more of a focal point in WBAI's programming, because we've seen the legitimacy of Black neighborhoods around New York City and certainly around the country, but I'm just using Mount Vernon as an example. The legitimacy of Mount Vernon, New York's Blackness, made valid by, you know, all kind of celebrity sources coming from it, from Heavy D to Denzel Washington, even, you know, the formerly appreciable talents of Puff Daddy, etc. You know, a lot of this has gone into the public mind as somewhere where you could appreciate Black communities. Mount Vernon is not that. And the legitimacy of Mount Vernon has been underwoven, it's rotten to the core by a Black bourgeoisie that is part of the outside world that the last questioner debated dealing with. And we have to deal with these communities around the Pacifica network, where Black communities exist in resistance, but they're not paid attention to. And we have to do that on the Pacifica level.
Thank you so much. Bella, you're next, then Rick Hooper, and then the individual that said 615. I can't see.
It'll be Ian Johnson.
Okay.
Is it a PK? Can Ian Johnson go before me, please? Thank you so much.
Sure. If that's okay with you, Rick.
Rick,
I would love to speak. Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Rick, you're muted, sir. You're still muted. If you can.
There we go.
There we go. Great.
Hey, great. Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm really appreciating and learning from this forum today. I'm fairly new to Pacifica. I have been in radio. I'm in the film industry, Directors Guild member. But I'm also a founder of KMUD Radio in Humboldt County. So I ran for the board recently. I became the second runner-up. And prior to that, I began getting involved with KPFK, and I was in touch with Michael Novick when he was general manager. And what I'm interested in and what I'm wanting to get a little feedback on is that I'm interested in more in helping the station package itself a little better, not changing the content, but helping it sell itself. I've consulted a number of radio stations, and I found that radio in particular, they promote everybody else, but they don't promote themselves as well. So I'm hoping to get involved with that. I've critiqued some shows. Michael knows about that. He can speak to that or not. Without censoring people, helping them to present their programs better. One other thing that I'm interested in for years and years, I've been wanting to get involved with, I think it's controversial in the community here, is underwriting, and to bring in business underwriting to KPFK or Pacifica stations. And the way I think of it, and the way I would tend to couch it, is that business in this country is being so overwhelmed and so dominated by huge big businesses that I think underwriting could actually give an opportunity for small businesses to get some exposure, and for us to learn about what small businesses we might want to support. And I think that's controversial, and I would like to talk with others about it. I'm not aligned on either side, particularly with New Day or with Fightback. I'm here to listen, and that's what I plan to do and contribute what I can to the stability of KPFK and Pacifica in general. Again, I thank you for inviting me to here today.
Anybody want to address that?
I'd love to.
Ian Johnston is next, I believe,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I will go after him. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So underwriting is a strategy
Yes.
to get around losing our listenership. Our bylaws were working just fine from 2003 to 2007 when we were at the peak of our listenership for KPFK. And we had a very progressive orientation and we had a very diverse orientation. So it wasn't just groupthink or Democratic Party top-down control. I wonder, is the World Economic Forum right-wing or left-wing? Because that's who came up with the policies that were followed under the pandemic. Robert Kennedy Jr. wrote a book called The Real Anthony Fauci, and I really would encourage whoever it was that was condemning people for hearing from him, a lifelong Democrat until quite recently, when the Biden gang kicked him out of the party by forcing him to not be able to run in their primaries. He was running as an independent. Eventually he was like, well, they kicked me off the New York ballot, so the only place I can run is, as part of the Trump campaign. So, understand, they alienated a lifelong Democrat. And there's nothing wrong with what he has to say. It's all science-based and evidence-based. And the fact is, masks, there is no evidence to suggest those have any benefit in preventing or stopping the spread of airborne illnesses. The science on that was settled 20 years before COVID. And everything that's come out since has shown that masks actually have worse outcomes, not better. So what I would say is that our problems did not begin with Roy of Hollywood losing 3 hours a night of his 6 hours a night. He had 24 hours a week, unlike every other programmer in the station. And while some of his program was good, some of his programs sucked. I'll say it. I sat in for him when he injured himself on his motorcycle. Roy of Hollywood was not going to live forever. So I supported the idea of redistributing some of his hours, particularly since we needed to cut budget, because the reality is our station has been losing listenership since 2007, and we can't pay the electrical bills. So keeping full-time staff on to drive our listenership away is a bad move. And in the case of Roy, yeah, he had a pretty solid audience, but it wasn't growing. And yeah, I'd like to revise and extend my remarks because I have to come up against the Brandolini effect, the bullshit asymmetry principle. Now, what I'm telling you is that the Democratic Party has been buying our elections in LA for a long time. There's a group called the Santa Monica Mountains Progressive Democrats in America. I'm making air quotes around progressive because there is nothing progressive about this group. And their control over our station and our airwaves has resulted in the audience being driven away. And so we're now at a fifth of what our audience once was, and it's much easier for them to hijack the elections. And of course, there was a whole long list of election violations in the past 2 elections.
You can get back into the queue. Your time is up.
Well,
you can get back into the queue. Bella, go next. And if you want to get back into the queue, everybody.
Bella, could I have some of your time?
How much time is it being allocated per speaker?
2 minutes.
How many?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll give him 1 minute.
Thank you, Bella. So what I'm saying is that the fallacies being promoted here is that, if we just had more money, we'd be fine. Well, if we don't care about people listening, I guess, but the reality is that that's also an avenue for foundations. And typically those foundations are like, USAID, George Soros connected, not a good thing. We should be independent and we should be able to sponsor ourselves with listener sponsorship. And then when we're providing something that the listeners can't get anywhere else because all of American media is propaganda, then we suddenly become a unique area in media. And because our independence is built into our listener sponsorship model and our bylaws allow for democratic control to prevent takeovers by a political party or an outside group, we have the ability to stand up and declare genocide where it's occurring. And if you can't be neutral on a moving train. If you're not speaking about genocide, you are endorsing genocide. And that's what's happening on our air now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points. Thank you. Margot.
Thank you, Ian. This is Bella. Thank
Bella,
you.
Thank you.
I wanted to address what Andrew Weiss was saying, which was really, even though I was one of the co-founders of the group that he mentioned, I pulled away from it, sadly, because I realized that him and I were not on the same page on a number of issues. And Sheila doesn't know Andrew, and I do very well, but I wanted to address that these people have come to power through great manipulations, as Ian was alluding to, highlighting, and this is how they are in power. And they have controlled the KPFK LSP for a very long time, and they have been in control, and now they have complete power through collusion and misrepresentation, through deceitful clandestine meetings
10 seconds.
in closed sessions. And believe me, this is how they put together these so-called bylaws, and we must reject them with all might. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. That's great. PK, I'd like to call Margot Iser. She was in stack.
Okay, go ahead. And then give the next people after that, Kirby.
Yeah, the list is Mara Rivera, Bob Lederer, Virginia, and then Janine. Oh, and then we've got the number 06521, but I'll keep a check on it. Thank you. Thank you. So Margot, you've got your spot. Margot?
Okay, I have always been emphasizing, first of all, that we, the people who donate the money, the listener sponsor members, whatever you want to call us, need to have on every penny complete information of every single financial transaction, and also take part in making the decisions on how the money is spent, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be very good to reveal that. Also, I get annoyed when they call it news stories and things like that. We don't want stories. I want real, factual, actual reporting of news, of facts, and that kind of thing would help maybe get the programming, the news and everything being more factual and not opinions and things like that. And the second thing is, it's good that they're finally starting to say that just even though the fund drive is over, you can still donate to KPFK. That was getting to be very annoying. But I think all the stations need to be publicizing themselves through word of mouth and things like that to tell people how special it is with all the variety of the programming, and that it is important that the people do keep having the power to take part in every single decision about almost everything, and that would be a really good selling point, so to speak. So that's what I want to do. I have my radio turned down lower because there's good music on Aphrodisia. So but I do like to be part of the running of the station, and I think that should be a part of everybody who pays their dues, so to speak, and then they become a member and they get to be part of running the station. So I hope that that's clear, and I hope that everybody else gets a chance to say some words, and we just keep respectful of each other and discuss things in an analytical, factual way. Thank you very much.
Thank you for saying that, Margot. So next on the stack is Margot Rivera.
Hi, that's me, Mara Rivera.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And there are 5 of us here from KPFA's Rescue Pacifica Affinity Group. We're very concerned with Noonday's continuing attempt to appropriate KPFA, fragment Pacifica, and moderate it into another NPR. And we formed to oppose them. We have 7 or so reps on our local station board, 1 on the Pacifica National Board, a minority, in other words. We're trying to spread the word to KPFA's members about the authoritarian goals of the New Day bylaws so far by our beautiful website rescuepacifica.net, and with leaflets we hand out at community events. So let's see, who are we? Anthony Fest, Daniel Borgstrom, Donna Carter, myself, Mara Rivera. Ooh, I think I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, well, if I am.
They removed two. They removed Mila, Elizabeth Milos and Steve Seltzer.
Yeah, they removed two of our most steadfast vocal critics on the local station board. They fired them for a year and a half. And yeah, the meetings, they've reduced the meetings to one every other month because that's the minimum. And they reduced public comment to a half hour, although that's supposed to be the minimum, maximum. And it's very difficult being in the belly of the beast at KPFA, but we're continuing to oppose them.
Time.
Getting hand claps. So PK, may I go to Bob Lederer next? Is that all right?
That's okay.
Bob, you have the mic.
Hi. So I'm using Bob's phone. We're together right now. And I'm John Riley, and I'm a producer at WBAI, one of the collective that's called Out FM. It's an LGBTQ collective, and that's tries to cover the community through by looking at intersectional politics. Anyway, the reason, what I wanted to talk about just a bit is I definitely think that the New Day is like a huge problem. But the problem is our forces are, not so strong right now that, we can win in elections as easily as we did formerly. And one of the things that I think that we're really facing is the demographic cliff of Pacifica listenership. And that by that I mean, because the average age of listeners has gone up, continues to spiral up, more and more people are dying off. And that means then we have to recruit new people to listen. The problem is young people do not have radios. They have phones, they have, and the internet. And the thing is that at least at WBAI, the internet stream is not incredibly robust, and it's not publicized. And I think that, this is a strategic question, I think, and it doesn't directly address the New Day thing. I think that trying to address it through the legal mechanisms outlined by some of the speakers, that sounds like that's a worthwhile thing. But just in short, Trump is creating an upsurge in the activities of the popular movements. And we need to be leafleting at those places, telling people about Pacifica, trying to build listenership through the web stream, especially a younger listenership. And then the more we can get that listenership, eventually we'll get people interested in the politics. But that's it. So,
oh, what a good idea. Yes, have anytime that anything's mentioned on KPFK, have literature there about KPFK to hand out that any venue. That's what I've been insisting on too. We must insist upon that. Thank you.
Anybody want to respond to Mr. Riley? Moderators.
This is Sheila. Only that John's absolutely right. I've long felt that the Pacifica website is absolutely horrible. It must be one of the worst. And unfortunately, our station is close behind, and we really need to make it way more accessible, not just to young people, but also to the disabled as well. And of course, that John, I'm sure you mean that we should expand into arenas like podcasting.
I see
Absolutely.
Sally with her. I see Sally Kirby with her hand up, and she's a moderator. And
Yes,
so I
ma'am.
was just wondering if she wanted to say something, and then we'll have Virginia after her.
Yeah, briefly, yes, absolutely. We should be publicizing everywhere. Older folks who aren't involved have forgotten about us. Young folks don't know about us, but are thrilled to hear about us when they do. We passed out flyers at the latest WBAI fundraiser with Ecologic on one side and Palace Coup on the other. Our general manager was not happy with us, but we did it. I don't know how much we can do on air, but certainly, everywhere we go, we should be pushing for listeners. And work with college, the schools of journalism as much as they can, given the attacks by Trump, but yeah, get those guys involved.
Thanks, Sally. Virginia.
PK, actually, Benubtu's got his hand up.
Janine was in line, wasn't she? Janine Ron?
She's in line, but we are trying to hear from the moderators so that if they've got a response to this.
Okay.
So Benubti is up, if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I wanna actually respond to John Riley's sentiment as well, because I think it follows on the drum I've been beating for the entire time I've been able to speak, and I want to concede that, frankly, as an African person in the Black community, there are very little infrastructural, media, or other elements of support for resistance, and frankly, one of the most resistant and one of the most antithetical structures to resistance in most Black communities, especially in this country, are the bourgeoisie, the actual so-called middle class, and the so-called proletariat, and the lumpen proletariat, the hustler element that really just doesn't know better. But frankly, they do everything to bring the state, the fascist state, into its manifestation. And I want to say that one of the best ways, at least in Mount Vernon, and I would think that this exists in every other broadcast area of every other city, is to find these movements, talk to the so-called radicals in those areas, and bring them to the air. And not just for talent, not just as producers, but actually bring their participation, their movements into LSBs as much as you can. And we also have to change our modalities. I think tactically, it's obvious that terrestrial radio, as John said, it's on its last legs in the video world. We have to do something about internet-enabled video in our transmission capabilities. I don't know how to solve that problem fiscally, because obviously it's going to take some resource. But I think, again, with building movement and involvement, you'll build membership, listenership, and build resources. We're not going to do it with CPB funding. We're not going to do it with, more government funding of resistance movements. That's just never happened. So if WBAI, KPFT, or any other
10 seconds,
any other Pacifica station is going to be a resistance element, it's going to have to be from the masses. And I think we need to just own up to that. Thank you.
Time.
PK, you're muted, but I believe you're saying that Virginia Browning, or does anyone?
Yeah, but I wanted to kind of do a little housekeeping, because we've reached the 2-hour mark, and ask if everybody's okay with another 30 minutes. Okay. I mean, let's go.
I see hands.
Let's go. Virginia?
Hi. Okay, I had to be out for a little bit in the middle there, but if people, okay, the point of building the membership is partly to build the membership and to get the world changed. But as the New Day people are, okay, I handed out some flyers the other day. Let's just say that. And I basically had the same sentiment that you guys are putting out there. And so, as you know, New Day is very well organized and funded. And they have already come back and they have their arguments all neatly arranged. And they're saying that it is not a top down. Their new bylaws are not top down, and they're blasting this out to everybody. So if this is going to be an effective telling to people, we really have to counter the bullshit that they're putting out there. We have to say it is top down, and I'm sorry I don't have it at hand right now, but Akio Tanaka, who's one of their main people, sent me something, said, well, 2 of them are elected by the blah, 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 and 2 of them are elected. And I understand that having the whole of Pacifica elect people is not as democratic as having local people elect local people. But I can hear their point of view on that too, because they're saying nowadays everybody does it on the internet anyway, and people don't usually know who they're electing and blah, 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 even if it's local. So, I mean, they've got an argument to everything. So my point is people have to come up with specific counterings of the stuff they're putting down. And if you are against their bylaws, I think we need to go point by point
10
and
seconds.
say exactly where it's not helpful and why a Democratic board is not just financially a disaster, which is the big thing they're putting out, but that it brings people in.
Thank you.
Virginia, I can understand your thinking, but I'd like to say this. When things are held in secret, the Hamilton thing, in the room where it happens, a lot of things, the room where it happens is not part of Pacifica. And I think that is the biggest crime, is that they've had these meetings and they've manipulated and haven't been honest. They haven't made good faith efforts. And I know that because I have talked to them one-on-one. And basically they are elitists who think that they have the right, right reasoning, that they're doing it for the greater good. No, they're not. They're doing it for their good.
I
And
know that, and you know that, but how are we going to convince more listeners of that? That's what I'm asking. We need to convince the majority of listeners of
I do have an answer. I do have an answer to that. The thing is we've got to think outside of the proverbial box. I took the Community Advisory Board, the CAB, and made it into something that made a difference, and it brought a lot of people in. But the rooms where we're not allowed to go has continued to be, they come back. They come back with a vengeance, and we start all over again. But I don't think we should get up by accepting bad behavior. They've had bad behavior, and that's my go-to. My integrity and my ethics are all I have of value, and they don't have it.
PK, this is Nancy. I'm about to run out of fuel on my phone. Can Corazon take over timekeeping, 2 minutes each for each speaker? And I believe Janine was skipped, or I heard her name.
No, she's next.
Oh, she's next. Okay. So can Corazon please take over timekeeping, 2 minutes each?
He's got his thumb up, right?
Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna go home and charge my phone. Thank you.
Okay.
And PK,
Janine, I'm sorry.
We've got Sally's hand up. If you want to go to Sally first or Janine, your choice.
Jean.
Okay.
I'm responding. Yeah. Jean, and then Sally. Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, thank you.
Is it right? It's Janine?
Yeah, Janine Roan,
Okay,
KPFK
I'm going
LSP.
Jean because that's my aunt's name. Okay. Janine.
I posted in the chat a red flyer for the KPFK LSB unofficial meeting tomorrow. It was scheduled and it was to be a hybrid meeting, which we voted on last month. But the PNB on Thursday night took a resolution from one of our directors and basically squashed any in-person meetings that until they get approved at the national level based on security, all these different items. The flyer talks about it. We're having an unofficial meeting anyway. You can join via Zoom or in person if you're in Los Angeles. We would love to have a big showing because the idea that that our chair canceled the meeting based on this resolution that it couldn't be in person until approved nationally is just a way for them to squash our voices right now. So I want to encourage everybody to come to that. We are going to be, there's Jan Goodman calling me on my cell. I wonder what she's going to call me about. Anyway, I also want to defend Rebel Alliance News. I was one of the hosts. I was helping to put together shows. There was an incident in November where there was a staff member that was threatened. And that incident was mismanaged, both by management and the executive director. And it was pulled off the air under the guise of, it was on permanent pause based on investigating the incident. And it was never put back on. And it was used as an excuse. This workplace abuse was used as an excuse to take it off the air. Now, the content may be controversial for many people, but it was factual. Sometimes there was commentary that was used, but the idea that it wasn't factual. And the reason I bring this up is at our meeting tomorrow, Oscar Ulloa that was approved at a PNB level was Pacifica on the Streets. And there's no better time for us to push for this again for local programming, news programming at KPFK as we have ICE raids going on in multiple places as of last night and today.
We're at time.
So I want to encourage everybody to support a local news program again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. It is our mission statement for us to cover underrepresented, to serve underrepresented communities. And the people that are questioning the narrative right now, because the pharmaceutical companies own media, we all know this, and they bought our representation in Congress. So the vaccine injured, the vaccine hesitant, the people that are questioning the narrative need a voice. And that's a lot of what Rebel Alliance News was there to serve. Thank you.
Okay, Sally, a moderator, had a comment.
Yeah, just how it's clear at the PNB meetings that these folks have organized in advance to bring their agenda, push it forward and override everything. Including, I suspect, the meeting that was discussed the night. It's ridiculous for the national board to micromanage station meetings in that way. They're saying, they've got insurance responsibilities and the like, but the info Janine shared, they covered most of that. They had all that, maybe they didn't figure out transit or handicap. Basically, they had it covered. So they're squashing people. It's not right. It's just not right, Jack.
Okay. 310 ending in 0521.
This is Ian Johnson again. Yeah, thank you for recognizing me. I wanted to concur wholeheartedly with my comrade and my associate Janine. We're both on the local station board.
I'm sorry, PK, someone say a word and this gentleman is coming back. Sorry.
I can't hear what's going on. What were you saying?
It was just a comment, but you've still got your minute and a half, so please continue.
Okay, So if I could at least get that, reclaim my time, I guess. So yeah, that's 100% what she said. The reality is that the one thing Pacifica has is that it doesn't have corporate control from the top. And that was what was allowing censorship of all alternative viewpoints. And I'm no fan of Elon Musk, but when he bought X, all of a sudden there were all these professional scientists and doctors and researchers who were suddenly now no longer banned. And the reason they were banned is because the Biden administration didn't want anyone opposing their agenda, which was not set by them. It was set in Davos by the World Economic Forum in January of 2020. Before, yeah, well, guess what? You're gonna have to deal with some facts here. I'm sorry. That happened in 2021 in Davos. They discussed the response to the pandemic before it was a pandemic, before anyone had it. I know I had it here in LA in December of 2019. They were testing it out. There's a Washington Post article from July of 2019 talking about a respiratory illness killing people in a nursing home in DC area. Guess what? That was a test run. And that's why Cuomo and Newsom put a bunch of sick people next to a bunch of vulnerable elderly people. They tested it out and it worked. So they did it. So I'm sorry if somebody doesn't like facts. I'd be happy to go over citations from the literature with you. The shots killed more people than they could ever have helped by a factor of 6 at the minimum. And that's the reality. They were trying to push people into taking these shots.
Time. I know you're on the phone.
Mengele medicine is what that was. And Pacifica is the one place you could not be controlled and could be putting that information out. But with people like New Day in charge, that's never going to happen. So I thank Michael for allowing us to create the Rebel Alliance News and put it on for as long as we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. So
lower your hands when you finish so that I know what's next, please. When you start talking, lower your hands, and then that'll help us keep on track. Kamal?
Ian, lower your hand. Ian.
Yes, good evening. Kamal Harris. I'm the current chair, local station board, WPSW. Margot said earlier, and people kind of talking about strategy. So I just want to kind of touch on that about how we can, move the internal workings of Pacifica forward. We had a town hall recently, and at the town hall, the listener supporters, as they heard from the vice chair of the PFB try to explain the new bylaws, didn't so much care what the new bylaws said. They were deeply offended that the new bylaws or proposed bylaws changes happened without their notification, without them being notified. So I think the strategy just needs to be, we continue to alert the listeners about the fact that this proposal has happened in secret and that the democratic foundations of the station, of which most of the listeners are, attracted and come to Pacifica for, have been completely violated. I think the second approach also would be a financial, which to me, the finances being the foundation of an organization, primarily because without money, it's really hard to do much else, that the finances become something that we really try to secure a reading on. Most of the information comes very late. I've been on both the treasurer's seat, now at the chair. It's almost impossible for the stations to manage themselves without timely information. So I think we can kind of put a campaign together. I'm going to start to do that with our local treasurer and really drive home the fact that the financial standing of the organization isn't readily available, and that it goes against the duty of the national board to present this to the listeners. So I think that's the kind of a two-prong approach, and I think that will attract and move the members towards the side that, if there is a side, or towards towards the vision of what we want, not only internally in Pacifica, but externally in the world. I think we have to mirror, or at least be a model for what we want in the world internally at Pacifica. I know it's kind of platitudes. I know everyone's probably, very much familiar with that, but the two-pronged approach to me wouldn't be necessarily a point-for-point argument against the bylaws, but just a simple, and I think someone else already said that, maybe PK, a simple discussion about democracy and whether or not you care about, every detail is moot. Did you receive notification? Would you like to be notified? It doesn't even matter, So I think that and the finances should be our goal in terms of a strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanutu. I'm sorry. Thank you, Kamau. So sorry. I'm looking at a lot of notes here. PK, the floor is yours for.
Rick, did anybody from the moderators want to respond to that?
This is Sheila. I think that's excellent. There are going to be elections in 26, and in my opinion, we should run. We should run a campaign. And I think the national board passed some rule that you can only reach out to all the membership. According to the old bylaws, any member could contact any other member in the foundation as long as you went through a third party. You weren't allowed to get other people's contact information. But they changed the rules so that you could only contact other members during an election. So we should take advantage of that fully and coordinate our campaigns. And the points that Kamau raised were excellent.
Thank you, Sheila. Hey, Rick. Did you leave me?
I just needed to unmute there. Thank you again. I just want to make one different point, and what I haven't heard, except for the last speaker.
I can't hear you.
Rick, we can't hear you, Rick.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go with that. So what I'm interested in is what this group or what Fightback is considering or proposing to, quote, stabilize and financially safeguard the station. And the reason I bring that up is that, and again, I'm not on either side of this. I try to support the station, whatever that means. And what I hear a lot is fear about the station's finances. The station, KPFK is the station I'm mostly associated with, and Pacifica's finances. And I don't know, I haven't looked into fine details. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And I think fear drives people to want change. I want to offer change that I believe is positive and everything, but I'm wondering, what can Fightback propose in order to meet those concerns that I think are reasonable that people are having, and whether the information they're getting is factual or not, or whether it's intended to be a fear tactic, I don't know. But I do know that or I do believe that Pacifica and the stations are having their own financial struggles. And I think that the way to gain support for your agenda and for this organization in particular is to speak to the financial issues and come up with those and the stabilization, as I say, of the station. Thank you for your time.
PK, this has come out. May I respond to that, if I could?
Yeah, we got another kind of issue, but yeah, come out. Go ahead, because we have 6 more minutes, or
yeah,
we
it'll
can
be
have
brief.
no time. Go ahead, come out.
Yeah, that's spot on. It's a scare tactic. Okay, there's definitely a financial problem. There's issues financially with the organization. However, when you don't produce the documentation, you just give me a scribbled notes or handwritten notes, or even if it's a PDF document, that's not enough. I'm trained in finance. I have a background in accounting. I've been a financial analyst for many, many years in the healthcare industry. These things have to have solid foundational support when you're putting forward these documents. We need to challenge all these documents. We need to have the national office produce a detailed, historical, written financial report. The audits in these 990s do not cut it. You need the balance sheets. You also need the general ledger. All these things must be present in order for the membership to make, a decision about how to move forward. It cannot be held in close quarters amongst 2 or 3 people. Not going to work. So thank you.
Amen. Ruth? Oh, did you want to say something, Sheila?
Yeah, I understand people's financial concerns. And one of the things Pacifica Fightback stands for is open books, which is any member should be able to access the financial information of their station and of the network. And one of the problems with New Day disempowering the LSBs, the local boards, is that you can't question anything that management is doing. Like, for example, why did WBAI just hire a news director when we can't pay our tower bill? Like, what's up with that? In terms of raising funds amongst the publics, I mean, I've been following, okay, I confess, I watch a lot of podcasters. Some of these people have followers in the hundreds of thousands. They're raising money on Patreon or whatever, these Substack, or they're getting subscribers who are giving them like $5, $10 per month. And they're making a living doing this. So one of the ideas that Pacifica Fightback, some members have put forward, is that there's close to 800, 1,000 unpaid producers in Pacifica. Do they own their own rights? Do they have any rights at all to the material they're producing? Is everything just owned by Pacifica and you don't own it? This is like work for hire for no pay, for work for hire without the hire. Okay, so, there's a lot of reorganization in terms of the website, in terms of bringing in video and podcasting, bringing Pacifica into the 21st century that could raise its profile. And, let the listeners vote with their dollars the way they're doing with podcasters, and let them bring controversial programmers like The Gray Zone, which was taken off of, I think, KPFK, right? People who are willing, investigative journalists who are willing to stick their necks out and challenge mainstream and alternative media in terms of their authentic, their legitimate research. So it's a mixed bag, but I think if people are out there and willing to do the work, and we can get
I'm
more.
sorry, but this is Bella, and Janine and I,
Bella,
both of our
Bella,
chats,
Bella,
have
you
been
cannot-
disabled. Our chats have been disabled.
Bella,
Our chats have
Bella,
been disabled.
It's not just you.
Bella, we're working on it right now. Thank you.
It is very critical that the chat is not disabled.
We're working on it right now.
It must be an error, okay?
It's an error. We're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not either.
I'm looking at it all the time. And
Sheila, you've got to finish up.
The person who talked about endorsements or whatever you call it from small businesses. I mean,
underwriters.
Underwriters. Thank you. At WBAI, we used to do fundraising in the station with volunteers answering the phone instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to some phone company to answer the phones. Real people used to answer the phone, and and local restaurants would supply food to the volunteers, and they would be thanked on the air. That's a form of small business underwriting. It's the community pitching it. So, you know, those things can be, I think, are up for discussion.
I'm sorry, this is Michael about
KPFK
the
used to
chat.
do
Nothing
that
was done to the
too.
chat. For some reason, some people have been communicating individually to each other. But if you go to the thing that says main chat on the top of your chat and just click on it, you'll be back in the regular chat that goes to everybody.
No, that's correct. Michael,
That
people
is not working.
people who are not hosts or moderators cannot post to the chat.
Neither
It's been that way since a little after 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, it was actually the last test. There was one at 8:03 here on the East Coast, and the test at 8:20, but I had still unable to chat.
Well, I that test was from me, and I'm a co-host. That's why I was able to.
Well, you guys are able to.
Okay, we need to move on.
Working on it,
I'm
folks.
on the stack. This is Serene. Is there, who's watching the stack?
Kirby was
try it again. The meeting was scheduled to be only 2 hours, and it probably cut itself off at that point. Just try it again.
Thank you, Michael. So
it's working now.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So PK and I are watching the stack, and of course she is doing such a great job at moderating that I'm not going to step on her toes at all. But we do see PK, can you see all the hands that are up at the moment?
I can, and
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Ruth and some telephone numbers, but Daniel Borgstrom and Serene Roberts, I don't think that they've spoken. Oh, and Eleanor, I see Eleanor Foreman. And I've been telling people that they could get back on the stack. So that hasn't changed, but I'm also watching the people who have had no voice. So it would be Donald and Serene. Nancy, do you have your hand up, meaning you're back, or you've got something?
Yes, on the stack.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go Daniel, Serene, and Nancy.
Okay, is it my turn now? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm Daniel Borgstrom from KPFA. I was on the board for 6 years. I'm off the board now. The reason we come up with this thing about the New Day system is going to be a self-selecting board. I tell you why I personally believe that, because at KPFA last November, 2 of our Rescue Pacifica board members were taken off the board. They were elected by like everybody else on the board, they were elected by the listeners, and the board majority held a hearing, they call it a trial, a hearing, call it what you want, and they found them guilty of some bogus stuff. And I wrote an article about it. I was there. I wrote a lengthy article. But anyway, they took them off and they suspended them. So in effect, the voters can vote for who they want, but New Day will take them off. And that's a self-selecting board. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Take others off.
Well said, Daniel.
Thank you. So next up, reading the stack. I believe it's Amara is next, but let's go to Serene because we haven't heard from her. So Serene, you have the mic.
Great. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to correct a statement, something about they won the elections. Those elections were highly irregular, shall we say. There were problems with the administration. There were problems getting responses. with regard to violations of the fair campaign rules. There were technical problems when things were extended, where the election supervisor claimed she no longer had access to people's nominations. A whole bunch of people from KPFT were essentially, they had their candidacies denied on the grounds that they didn't have enough people nominating them. All of this during the technical difficulty period. People who had records and were able to, had their own records, were able to sustain their candidacies. It turns out that KPFT, therefore the other side, had a sweep, and they had such great victories that after the election supervisor had declared, no, you guys are running for a 3-year term, because of course we know that in 2023, when people had been on the board already for 6 years, they extended their own terms for a year and refused to seat runners up as the bylaws require. So initially she said, oh, you guys have 3 years. And then she said, oh, no, the PNB says you have 2 years. And then KPFT, the wrong side, if you will, had such a victory because of these problems that they decided, oh, no, we like these results. We're going to give you all 3 years after all. So the statement that New Day and crew, and their cousins, quote, won the election cannot be allowed to stand. Thanks.
Thank you, Supreme. We've got an internal clock going. PK, we've got Nancy, Eleanor, Ali has not spoken, and the person on 3510, I believe, hasn't spoken. So that's the mix. Oh, and Bella's got her hand up again. Great. So what is your choice? We've got
The
Eleanor.
person that has not spoken, please.
Yep, thank you. So that's going to be Eleanor hasn't spoken, Ali hasn't spoken. I'm not quite sure who's on 3510 number.
Kirby, this is Sheila. Also, I think we should keep an eye on the clock. PK extended the forum by half an hour, and I don't know what time it is right now.
Thank you. Yeah. We're a little over that as by my clock, but it looks like we're still.
I think we should
7
close.
minutes past.
Yeah,
So-
perhaps we should either decide to end the forum or to stop it after the people who have their hands up speak.
Who haven't spoken. We're 7 minutes past the half an hour. So I would just like to make sure that we didn't not let somebody speak. And I think that Eleanor and Ali and Nancy haven't really spoken. Everybody else has spoken. And let's just kind of play it by ear and see if we can get everybody in, if everybody will be a little bit more succinct. 2 minutes for Eleanor, Ali, and Nancy, and maybe 1 minute for everybody else. Is that okay? Is that fair if you've spoken?
Sounds fair.
Okay. All right.
Eleanor, you are on the mic.
Okay, yes, Serena is correct that they won a crooked election, but they got the seats in a crooked manner, but they got the seats, unfortunately, and they got the control. But what I was on the stack for was, I believe Sheila said that we're going to be hiring a news director. Is that for WBAI? What is this? This is news to me.
A news director was hired.
Who?
Rebecca Miles.
Huh. Has a news show started?
I believe so. Yep.
Oh.
No.
No.
No?
No, anyway, this
Yes,
is some
yes,
internal
yes, it has.
business. We can discuss this some.
We have to move
It's
on.
public. She has
Let's
a show
move
Monday,
on.
Wednesday, Friday at noon. Bella, please. She has a show Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. I think we're still within Eleanor's time. We can answer her
Right, and
question.
that's not a news program, but anyway, it's her personal time, and it's never been posted, and there are a lot of issues for some future discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eleanor. Is that wrap up your question, Eleanor?
Yep.
Groovy. All right, so
Ali.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. I wanted to respond to something that I believe it was Virginia who was talking, and she was talking about the election. One of the things that you should be aware of, and I think you're 100% right, because we do talk about how can we reach to the listener, and that is very, very important. But one thing that you should know and you should be aware of is that New Date on 2021, I think, elections, they have their own master list. How they got a master list, we don't know. And they still using some kind of list to reach the KPFA and probably KPFK listeners. So they have some endorsement, and I want to make you aware that one of those endorsements was from Jay Fonda, supposedly, and they didn't take it back. They didn't go back to the listener to tell them that it was an endorsement, that it was illegal. So we had a lot of problem at that time on 2021. So you should be aware of that. So they use a lot of trickery they did back then. And unfortunately, nothing was done against them. And now they did it again. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that the elections and the way that they run those elections, they're not legal. They're very, very illegal. And even and you're right, because we always talk about it, how well organized they are. And you know what? People that they were organized, because they're well organized, that is why they use propaganda, they lied a lot, they fake news, and they use all that to win election. And that's why they took over. And my last thing that I have to say, as long as we have GMs that they're working for New Day, and I'm saying for WBAI, because he was very clear that he has to listen to the woman named Stephanie, and he works, and unless Stephanie talk to him and let him know, he checked with her first before he does anything at WBAI. And I think it was V who mentioned the racism that is happening at KPFT. And as long as we have those managers working for New Day, we won't be able to reach the listeners. It's a big, big problem. I just wanted to address those things to what Virginia was saying before. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Ali. So there's a phone number, 310-570-6521. Have we heard from you before? Who is that?
Yes.
Yes, this is me. That's me, sir. 3510.
I think 6521 is my number. This is Ian Johnson. I just wanted to point out a couple things I heard that were incorrect.
Okay,
this has nothing to do with technical
but you're
capacity.
not. You're on the stack, but you're not next.
Oh, okay.
I was next. 3510.
Yeah,
Okay.
3510.
So that's a minute if you can. We're in a
Thank you, sir.
now,
Andrew Weiss, KPFK again. I'm not saying I agree with New Day Pacifica at all. What I am saying is they are in power. They did win the seats of the elections. One way or another, they got into power. And if folks don't want to see them in power, you have to vote them out. You have to win the next elections one way or another. That's just the basic reality. I'm not debating whether it was fair by New Day. I don't perhaps think it was, or that it was legitimate, but they're in power and they're running things. If you don't want to see that happening, continue, outperform them the next election. It's pretty basic. I think Sheila said it. I agree. In the next election, run a campaign. I didn't see much of a campaign the last election, and they won. But face it, folks, you're going to have to out-organize them, outdo them if you don't want to see them running this station. That's all. And lastly, people shouldn't be speaking out of turn. They should only be speaking when they're recognized by the moderator. It's disruptive and it's rude and it steps on other people's toes. One at a time, folks, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you said the words I love: organize, out-organize them. King talked about that. Anyway, so PK, what's your? I think we've got everyone that's got a hand up that has spoken. So,
did Nancy speak? I don't think Nancy spoke.
No, Nancy did not speak.
Oh yes, thank you. Yeah, Nancy. This is Nancy from Sidebar Nigeria from KPFT, Texas. There's so many things. I don't know where to begin, but you know, our rights. The membership rights are so important, and it's like they don't know what's happening. Our rights to be able to communicate with each other are just not there. And some people have the membership list, but it's not us. And it's very expensive for us to even get a third party to, the last time the bill was $650 for the elections. And Michael Novick paid the whole thing, and we're trying to pay him back from our own pockets. You know, we don't ask people for money, but this is crazy, not being able to talk with your constituents. Another thing, the rights of people to be opining about bylaws, and it's just like evaporated, and the membership does not realize their rights are taken away. They have a right to do referendum on certain points when you change the bylaws. And it's not just the bylaws, it's also programming. Where are the programming committees? There's only one station, that's PFW, has a programming committee, and they're not doing anything in visually. And we're not going to grow and we're not going to attract youth unless we start doing visual. And when you have your show on Facebook Live or YouTube Live at the same time, and there's a storm, and we have a lot of storms here in Houston, and it's spreading around, you know, climate change involves everybody. Then you have another way to hear the broadcast. If your analog radio goes, you know, silent. So that's what youth like. They like to click, see things. And we must involve, by programming committee, involve the students. Even kids can make cards. Introduce them, plant the seed of making scripts like 1-minute cards about Black history or Asian history or indigenous history or Arabic history, all kind of wonderful things we should be doing. We should be having town halls, at least 2-hour town halls on how to reduce mass incarceration. Or here in Houston, the state took over the Houston Independent School District and is just spending money just on frivolously, and in making the teachers have no say in the teaching, just doing am I over?
Yeah.
Like 20
Okay,
seconds.
okay, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. All right. PK, your choice.
Ruth, I think, was never did say anything. I mean, she's spoken before, but she's in the queue. Ruth, Mara, 521, and Bella, and Serene. And Nancy, lower your hand, and we will make this our swan
Can
call.
we let
So, Ruth, you have a minute.
Ruth, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you
Yes.
now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Kamal about finances. We do not have the capability of streaming over a phone at KPFK, which is just asinine. And yet, you know, our building was the one that was sold, and I think, as I hear it, a lot of the money went to settle lawsuits, and I think those lawsuits were started by possibly New Day people or whatever. I don't know all the history, but the bottom line is I think our finances are in disarray. We need people like Kamal to be looking at things, or if not looking at them, advising us as he has on what information is ours. And I'm also going to just say one more time, I'm a physician, and I was in critical care for 40 years, and the information that was given by Mr. Johnson was incorrect. It's absolutely ludicrous to say that people who wore masks had more deaths. I'm not promoting masks. I have plenty of problems with Anthony Fauci. Vaccines also did not cause more deaths than COVID. It's absurd. And I'll just say one other thing for people. COVID is not seasonal flu. COVID does not cause people to have amputations. It does not cause people to have strokes. It does not cause it does not cause doctors to die. And it does not cause us in critical care to have to ventilate people on their stomachs because we can't get enough air in on their backs. So I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for actualizing the.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we were just talking about no jumping in, but thank you. It's an amen corner. Mara, 1 minute. Mara,
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Two things very briefly, I hope. One, I really appreciated the legal rundown that Robert Gordon gave us, but I didn't take great notes, and I wonder if there would be some way that I could access that information again. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, I would like to speak in favor of contesting many of the changes that have supposedly taken place in the new quote unquote bylaws. I think that people are all different, and I think we should use different approaches. Maybe hearing those points contested, the 8 points that, for example, that Alex wrote in a letter to short letters to everybody, that will work for some people. And there are other approaches, such as it was mentioned, a discussion of what
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I like the music.
Should also be used.
Thank you, Mara. That's time. Thank you.
Okay.
521. And Mara, lower your hand so that it shifts.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Somebody did lower, it looks like. Yeah.
No, I think we heard from,
Yeah, you're on.
I think you're in order.
I think we heard from well, that's okay. You got a minute.
Bella.
Took his hand
Okay,
down.
thank you. So much. I'm on.
Yeah, you're on. You're good.
Bella.
We hear you, Bella.
Okay, thank you. Much of what has been said, I second what Ian has said. Janine, tomorrow, if people can attend the tomorrow's LSB impromptu physical, but you can join via Zoom. I hope she put it on the chat.
What time is it?
I just want to say that you know, we are facing a monster. And about 3 years ago, I came to this very town hall And I spoke of coordinating listener militia across the network. It is for that reason that I was suspended eventually. But I was suspended at the end of 2021. And this new day is situation killing us. And we said it our might. And there is a court case, but we are expecting opposition. So be on guard for that. And go to freepacifica.live, freepacifica.live, LIVE, on the chat. Thank you. I put it on the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. PK, I don't know if you are seeing this in your window, but DJ Elf7, I don't believe has spoken in this meeting tonight.
No, he hasn't. DJ Elf7.
Hey,
And then
hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, just so you know, earlier there was talk about getting the listeners on board to help support this particular issue. And another thing that you might be able to do is actually look up the donors and actually be able to, focus on them as well, because a lot of listeners may feel unhappy, but they don't really know what to do, right? But if we suck the donors out to us, then, I think the power is there. Also, I've actually been a YouTuber for quite some time, and I actually was part of different groups of a lot of other YouTubers who were like trying to come up, and we interacted with Gray Zone, Jimmy Dore, and all these other people. And the fact of the matter is that there's a Harvey Epstein, Puff Daddy type of environment going on within the YouTubers, and when you chase the numbers, and when you trace, trying to get distribution to try to get your issues addressed, that's the pathway to hell, because actually these people of national stature mess up and they destroy local grassroots organizers, and they make sure that the narrative is focused around issues that benefit themselves instead of the communities that they're supposed to serve. Like, I'm doing a town hall with the longest monthly congressman in New York City history. It's blackballed by all these media producers, including the Gray Zone. Dead serious. Thanks again.
Thank you. Very
Thank
succinct.
you. Serene.
I was cut off, and I was supposed to be speaking. I thought. I was having a hard time with the mic.
I don't.
I
called you. I didn't.
Well, I started to speak, and then I heard the phone go to a dial tone.
It wasn't on our end.
It was, yeah.
Well, perhaps I was fumbling with the microphone. I don't know, but I would like to speak for too long. Thank you.
That's
1
Ian
minute.
Johnston.
It's 1 minute.
Thank you, Ian. You're in stack. If you want to do the stack, or
I'd love to.
Okay.
Thank you. There's just a lot of things floating around. First off, if we can't make good radio, I don't think we can make good, cinema. I don't think we can go for the full operatic experience, and that costs money. And while I'm sure that people could repurpose their shows and put them on the internet, that's not necessary. The fact is, people have cars. I don't know about New York City, but I know everywhere else where they're stuck in their cars. That's what the easiest thing to get to. And it's legal to do. You're not supposed to be watching videos. Anyway, problem is that these people took control maybe 15 years back. It wasn't just Jan, it's also Grace. They worked together as a pair. They've been lying, cheating, being physically abusive this whole time. And I should be on the PNB right now because my people had enough votes, and if not me, Janine. So the reality is that we were denied a seat in LA. So you say, oh, they won the elections. No, they steal the elections. They cheat, they lie, they steal. So it's not even, we literally need lawsuits, and it's not in question at this point, I think. And beyond that, they're so just awful. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
We all agree. I think we all agree.
Serene, Nancy. Well, Serene, Michael, and then Nancy.
Okay, thanks. Someone had raised, I think, in the chat, the issue of what do we want people to do besides withholding donations. And I want to say the last thing we want people to do is to withhold donations. We want everyone to keep their membership up, and we want you to drag your relatives kicking and screaming into Pacifica membership. They want to know why you're nuts, and they'll understand once they start listening and become members themselves. It's important that you be able to vote in the next referendum. The fact is that under any iteration of the bylaws, the thing they say is in place or the one they claim they have replaced, there's a process. It's the same process for changing bylaws. It requires that it be properly proposed. It says who can propose it, directors, LSBs, members. It says that you have to provide public notice on the website and on the air. And there's a voting process and what you can and cannot do. So yeah, we want your membership. We will hold them to observing the bylaws. And yeah, we hope to kick ass in the next election. Thank you.
Michael, then Nancy, and then I think we are
done. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming. Reiterate that in the chat there are several links. They are to if you want to join up in the Defend Media effort that Mimi talked about, Mimi Rosenberg. If you want to get involved with the DEI, overcoming racism and sexism, and
It's hard to hear you.
Media. What's that?
Hard to hear you.
Oh, Jesus, Bella. I'll shout, okay, Bella?
Very
Nobody else
good.
seems to have trouble hearing me.
Excellent.
I said there are multiple links in the chat. If you want to get involved with the Defend Media effort that Mimi Rosenberg talked about, if you want to get involved with overcoming racism and sexism in progressive media, I will save the chat and we'll distribute to everybody who came today. I put in the chat a link to a GoFundMe to support the legal effort. I do think that even if we're able to launch a legal effort, the likeliest result will be that it will amount to a bylaws referendum on these new bylaws. That's the likeliest thing the judge will do, is they put it up to a vote. So please do maintain your membership. If we have the bylaws conference that PK talked about, we can draft bylaws of our own that are much more suitable for the 21st century. And put them forward as an alternative to whatever that a New Day has come up with. But that would also require a vote of the members. That's all. Check back through the chat if you want to, or you'll get a copy of it later on. Somebody asked about Robert Gordon's presentation. We did record this. It will be posted in a while to the PacificaFightback.org website. There's also a link there to sign up for a low-frequency email newsletter from Pacifica Fightback to stay in touch with us. And thanks again to everybody.
Thank you, Michael. This is Sheila, and I'm embarrassed to say that I forgot the main point of my speaking, which was to bring up that we do have in Pacifica Fightback a committee to fight against the destruction of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion inside Pacifica. That's what Michael was referring to. So
I'm glad you got that in. Nancy, I'll be kind of the last word because I did want to say something, but go ahead, Nancy.
So everyone, please, when you have time, and you think about it, go to pacificafightback.org, and that's where you'll see the up-to-date information. I think we have a lot of things posted there. Michael is posting things, and then you want to tell other people about Pacifica, and we do need to get youth involved, because when you get involved with some crusade or some mission, you own it. It becomes a part of you, and the whole thing becomes greater, stronger. So don't be sitting back. You people are interested. We are all interested in Pacifica and independent media and keeping it for the future. The future right now likes to click and doesn't really think radio is important, but we can get everybody all connected, terrestrial, the youth with clicking on phones, and visual. And yes, Ian Johnson, if we do visual, we will have a new audience, the hearing impaired. We'll see captions. We'll have international audience. And here in Houston, we've got a lot of people coming from all different countries. They can see their language there. No, visual is not bad. It's going to save us. Thank you.
back to you.
Hey, this is Bella. I want to.
Uh-oh. She got
Yeah,
muted.
Bella. Bella.
Bella, there you go.
So
We can,
please come to that meeting on July 7th. It's an orientation to defend public non-commercial media. I am on that subcommittee. Thank you.
Bella, you were muted at first, so could you?
Oh, yes. I want to invite everyone to join, send an email to the email address that Mimi Rosenberg read earlier. She put it on the chat, so look it up. July 11th is the orientation session that we are planning. I am on that subcommittee to defend public non-commercial media. Very, very critical. And then in August, at the end of July or August, we are planning a big bash event teaching. So that should be coming up as well. So get hooked up. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. PK, everybody.
What time is the KPF meeting tomorrow?
The orientation, send an email to the email that Mimi sent. I believe it will be 7, hold on, Eastern time.
She asked about
check
KPFK meeting.
No, it won't be on KPFK. And Mimi said
No,
July
this
11th.
is not a KPFK situation. This is independent. It's going to be an orientation on defending public non-commercial media. We have been meeting since February. So please send an email to the email list that Mimi read earlier.
It's show, SHOW at outfm.org. Show
That's
at
right.
outfm.org. It's in the chat.
I believe the person was asking about a KPFK meeting that was announced earlier.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Oh, that is for tomorrow. That is for tomorrow. At 1 p.m., I believe. The hour's been worked out. I believe it's 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or Daylight Time. So Janine Ron, I believe Janine put the information on the chat as well. I hope that to send the chat to whomever gave it and be sent to everybody right away.
We'll get it around.
Thank you for coming, everyone. It's been a great national town hall. Thank you, PK.
Thank you all for doing it.
Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, Michael.
PK, did
Everyone
you
have a good evening.
I appreciate everyone. I just wanted to say something. I was glad you talked about DEI because I've been talking about that for a long time, including all the individuals that I work with that were doing DEI and they lost some contracts and things. But George Mason did something and you made me think about it. They changed their DEI to ACC. Access, compliance, and community.
Oh, wow, that's good.
It does, in a way, it does, but access can still be thwarted because access means you have equity, but that doesn't mean you get equity for access if they're the ones making the choices. And then compliance, I'm not assimilating to the Heritage 2025 manifesto. I'm not going to be in compliance. I am a Black woman. I'm brilliant. I have good ideas and I have integrity and ethics. But at the same time, for all the countries I've gone to,
it's actually better.
I know I don't know shit. I mean, I don't know because you learn from each other. And if we start learning from each other, we don't need to fight about trying to get words that maybe this administration would accept. I'm here and I'm not.
We lost your voice.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was talking about access, compliance, and community is the new George Mason change for DEI. At first, I was really upset about it because I don't want access decided by somebody else. And what about compliance? What does that mean? To comply to who? To what? And then the last is community. Which community? One community? All the communities that exist? And so for me, and I was saying as a Black woman, I'm smart, I'm brilliant, I am. But sometimes I don't know shit. And the reason is because I need to learn something. So let's start listening to each other better than we do. And it doesn't have to be an argument, but it does have to be truthful. And that's my 2 cents for today. And let's do this soon. All right.
On that note, good night, everybody.
Thank you very much. I believe Michael is the host and he'll be closing
Yeah, that's
the
right.
window.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Business meeting,
everybody.
business
Thank you,
meeting,
everybody.
business
Bella.
meeting,
Take care.
business meeting, business
What?
meeting.
What business
Everybody.
meeting?